The transmission fluid on my hands felt cold as October rain hammered the garage roof. 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I was still under the hood of Mrs. Peterson's Buick, trying to make ends meet. Eddie Ford, 38 years old, owner of Ford's Auto Repair, no relation to the car company, just bad luck with surnames. Through the cracked window, I heard voices from our house next door. Tara and our 16-year-old daughter, Olivia, were at it again, their argument cutting through the storm like broken glass. "Mom says you're just too boring," Olivia's voice carried across the yard. "She needs a man who gives her fun, not some grease monkey who can't even keep the lights on." I dropped my wrench. The metal clang echoed in the empty garage. Boring? I thought, wiping my hands on an old rag. Guess the secret to happiness was always abs and spray tan, not oil-stained wallets paying for private school and designer clothes. Our city used to be something special. Riverside had old money charm mixed with blue-collar grit, but the factories closed years ago. Now it's all strip malls and empty promises, where everyone knows everyone's business, or thinks they do. The wealthy folks moved to the suburbs, leaving us working types to keep the lights on downtown. I locked up the shop and walked through the rain to our house. The mortgage was 3 months behind, but Tara still bought expensive wine and took mysterious work trips every few weeks. Her marketing job at Pinnacle Communications paid well, but not well enough for the lifestyle she'd been living lately. Inside, Tara stood in the kitchen, wearing a silk robe I'd never seen before. Her auburn hair was perfectly styled even at this hour, and she held her phone like it contained state secrets. "Working late again?" she asked without looking up. Peterson's car needed finishing. Bills don't pay themselves. She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Maybe if you had some ambition, we wouldn't need to worry about bills. I wanted to remind her about the private school tuition, the car payments, the credit cards maxed out on things I never bought. Instead, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and headed upstairs. That's when I saw it. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Tara's laundry basket sat on our bed, and poking out from under a designer dress was a phone I'd never seen before. Silver, expensive, definitely not her work phone or the iPhone she carried everywhere. My hands shook as I picked it up. The screen lit up with a text notification. "Can't wait for our weekend getaway, baby. This time we'll have the whole suite to ourselves." Gavarni. The message thread went back months. Photos, plans, intimate details I won't repeat. My wife of 18 years had been living a double life, and apparently half the town knew about it. Nick Slick Bannon. I knew the name from Olivia's social media posts. Personal trainer at Elite Fitness, the kind of guy who wore tank tops in December and called everyone bro. 34 years old with the maturity of a teenager and the ego of a rock star. I scrolled through more messages. Tara had told me she was going to a marketing conference in Chicago next weekend. According to her secret phone, she was actually planning a romantic getaway with her trainer boyfriend. "Eddie's working Saturday as usual," one of her messages read. "He'll never suspect anything. Poor guy thinks I'm advancing my career." The phone slipped from my numb fingers and bounced on the carpet. 18 years of marriage? 18 years of working 70-hour weeks to keep us afloat while she climbed the corporate ladder. 18 years of believing we were building something together. I heard her footsteps on the stairs and quickly shoved the phone back into the laundry basket. When she walked into the bedroom, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. "You look tired," she said, but her tone suggested she didn't care. "Just thinking about the Peterson job, complex transmission work." She disappeared into the bathroom, and I heard the shower running. While water pounded the tiles, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront her tonight. I wasn't going to scream or throw things or make empty threats. I was going to be smart about this. The next morning, I called my sister Penny. She worked as an administrative assistant at Pinnacle Communications, Tara's company. We'd always been close, even after our parents passed away 5 years ago. "Eddie, it's barely 7 a.m. What's wrong?" "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Has Tara been acting strange at work lately?" Long pause. "Why are you asking?" "Just answer me, Penny, please." Another pause, longer this time. "She's been taking a lot of personal calls, leaving early for client meetings that aren't on her calendar. Some of the other women have been talking." My stomach dropped. What kind of talking? The kind where they whisper and stop when I walk by. "Eddie, what's going on?" I told her about the phone, the messages, the weekend trip. By the time I finished, Penny was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I suspected something, but I hoped I was wrong." "What else do you know?" "Her friend Lila has been covering for her. making excuses, handling her appointments when she's not around. They've been thick as thieves lately. Lila Grant, Tara's best friend since college, a calculating woman who worked in the same department. I'd never liked her. Too much fake sweetness hiding something sharp underneath. There's something else, Penny continued. Last week I overheard Lila on the phone talking about getting Eddie out of the picture. I thought it was just office gossip, but now it sounds like they're planning something. Be careful, Eddie. Whatever you're thinking of doing, be smart about it. I hung up and sat in my empty garage, surrounded by the tools of my trade. Outside, the city was waking up, people heading to jobs that actually mattered, living lives that made sense. For the first time in months, I smiled. Thursday evening, I decided to pay Tara a surprise visit at work. She'd been staying late all week, claiming a big presentation needed finishing. According to her secret phone, she was actually meeting Nick for training sessions in the Pinnacle Communications parking garage. I parked across the street at 6:30 and waited. The October sky was already dark, and the office building's lights created yellow rectangles against the night. Most employees had gone home, but a few cars remained scattered across the lot. At 7:15, a red Camaro pulled into the garage. Even from a distance, I recognized Nick's ridiculous vanity plates. Slick One. The man had the subtlety of a neon sign. 20 minutes later, Tara's BMW descended from the upper level. She parked next to the Camaro, and I watched my wife of 18 years step out wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something short and expensive that definitely wasn't office attire. Nick emerged from his car like he was auditioning for a cologne commercial, tall, tan, with the kind of muscles that came from spending more time posing than working. He grabbed Tara around the waist and spun her in a circle while she laughed. The sound of her laughter carried across the empty street. It was genuine joy, the kind I hadn't heard from her in years. When was the last time she'd looked at me like that? When was the last time she'd looked at me at all? They were so absorbed in each other, they didn't notice me walking across the street. I had a tire iron in my jacket pocket, not for violence, just for the flat tire Nick was about to discover. I crouched behind a concrete pillar and watched them make out like teenagers. Tara had her back against Nick's car, running her fingers through his perfectly styled hair while he whispered things that made her giggle. This is my wife, I thought. The woman who complains when I track mud in the house. The woman who hasn't touched me voluntarily in 6 months. When they finally broke apart, Nick opened his car door for her with exaggerated chivalry. Your chariot awaits, my lady. Such a gentleman, Tara purred. Eddie never opens doors for me anymore. Eddie doesn't deserve you, babe. You're way too good for some grease monkey who can't even afford to take you somewhere nice. They drove off together, probably heading to whatever restaurant or hotel they'd picked for their evening. I waited until their taillights disappeared, then walked over to Nick's usual parking spot. The tire iron made quick work of his front tire. Not slashing, that would be obvious vandalism. Just a careful puncture that would leave him stranded, but look like normal wear and tear. I pulled out a parking ticket I'd printed at home and tucked it under his windshield wiper. It looked official enough to fool someone in a hurry, but the message was pure personal satisfaction. Violation. Unauthorized use of married woman's parking space. Fine. Your dignity and my wife's respect. Enjoy the ride, Slick. Management. The next morning, I got a call from Penny. Eddie, you need to see something. She met me at a diner downtown, sliding a tablet across the table. The screen showed security footage from the Pinnacle Communications garage. Grainy, but clear enough to identify me walking between the cars. How did you get this? Lila showed it to half the office this morning. She's claiming you're stalking Tara, trying to build a case for some kind of restraining order. I watched myself on the screen, looking like exactly what I was, a desperate husband spying on his cheating wife. Can they use this against me legally? I don't know. But Eddie, everyone's talking. Tara's playing the victim, saying you've been controlling and suspicious. She's got people convinced you're the problem. What about Nick's car? Oh, that's the best part. He called the police about vandalism. But when they couldn't find any evidence of slashing, he looked like an idiot. Tara had to call a tow truck and pay for a new tire. Small victories, but I'd take them. That evening, Tara came home later than usual. She found me in the kitchen, eating leftover pizza and reading a car repair manual. We need to talk, she said, her voice colder than the October wind. About what? About your little visit to my office yesterday, about the childish prank you pulled on Nick's car. I looked up from my book. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Eddie. I have security footage. Security footage of what? Me walking through a public parking garage? Her face flushed with anger. You punctured his tire. Did I? Because I heard the police couldn't find any evidence of vandalism. Maybe your boyfriend just needs better quality tires. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. In 18 years of marriage, I'd never been sarcastic with her. I'd been the good husband, the provider, the one who absorbed her criticism and tried harder. My what? Your boyfriend, Nick Slick Bannon, personal trainer extraordinaire. The man you've been meeting for training sessions while I work 70 hours a week to keep us afloat. The color drained from her face. I don't know what you think you saw. I saw my wife making out with another man in a parking garage. I saw her wearing a dress that cost more than our mortgage payment to impress some muscle-bound moron who probably can't spell commitment. Tara's shock quickly transformed into defiance. Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as you do to those cars, I wouldn't need to find companionship elsewhere. Companionship? Is that what we're calling it? Yes. Nick makes me feel alive again. He makes me feel beautiful and desired and fun. When's the last time you made me feel any of those things? I closed the repair manual and stood up. When's the last time you gave me a chance? When's the last time you came home before 8 p.m. or asked about my day or acted like we were partners instead of roommates? I have a career, Eddie. I have ambitions beyond this tiny town and your little garage. I'm sorry if that threatens your fragile male ego. My fragile male ego is the only thing keeping the lights on in this house. My fragile male ego paid for your car, your clothes, and your daughter's private school. But sure, let's talk about how I'm not fun enough. She crossed her arms. This conversation is over. No, it's not. We're going to talk about your weekend conference in Chicago, the one that's actually a romantic getaway with your trainer boyfriend. Her face went white again. How did you know about your secret phone? Lucky guess. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The kitchen felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. 18 years of marriage, and it all came down to this. Two strangers who'd forgotten how to love each other. I want you to stop seeing him, I said finally. Tara laughed, but there was no humor in it. Or what? You'll puncture more tires? You'll follow me around like some pathetic stalker? Or I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of woman you really are. Go ahead, see how that works out for you. She walked upstairs, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the taste of failure in my mouth. Through the window, I could see my garage across the yard, my sanctuary, my livelihood, my anchor in a world that suddenly made no sense. I pulled out my phone and called my old boxing coach, Jerry Martinez. He ran a gym on the south side of town, the kind of place where men went to work out their frustrations with heavy bags and honest sweat. Eddie, haven't heard from you in months. What's going on? I told him everything. When I finished, Jerry was quiet for a long moment. You want some advice? He finally said. Yeah. If you're going to fight back, fight smart. Don't get angry. Get even. And whatever you do, don't get caught. I hung up and stared out at the dark street. Somewhere out there, my wife was probably texting her boyfriend about our conversation, planning their next move in whatever game they thought they were playing. They had no idea what they'd started. Friday morning brought the kind of humiliation that small towns specialize in. I stopped at Murphy's Diner for coffee and noticed the conversation stop when I walked in. Whispered words followed me to the counter. Affair, trainer, poor Eddie. Margaret Murphy, who'd been serving coffee in this place for 30 years, gave me a sympathetic look. The usual, hun? Just coffee, black. She poured from the pot, her weathered hand steady despite her obvious discomfort. People talk too much in this town. Most of it's nonsense. And the rest of it? The rest of it ain't your fault. I took my coffee to a corner booth and tried to ignore the stares. At the next table, two women from Tara's office were discussing my stalking behavior in voices just loud enough for me to hear. Lila says he's been following Tara everywhere, one of them said. She's afraid he might get violent. I heard he threatened that nice trainer at Elite Fitness. Poor Nick was just trying to help Tara get in shape. Nice trainer. Right. The same nice trainer who'd been helping my wife out of her clothes for the past few months. I finished my coffee and left, but the damage was done. By noon, I'd received 3 cancellations from regular customers. By evening, someone had spray-painted "loser" on my garage door. Tara came home that night with a smile I hadn't seen in months. She was practically glowing, her cheeks flushed and her eyes bright. The weekend getaway was tomorrow, and she could barely contain her excitement. I'll be leaving early in the morning, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. The conference starts with a breakfast meeting. What hotel are you staying at? The Palmer House. Why? Just curious, in case there's an emergency. She nodded and headed upstairs, humming some song I didn't recognize. Through the thin walls, I heard her talking on the phone. The real phone, not the secret one. Mom, it's me. I wanted to let you know I'll be out of town this weekend. Yes, for work. No, Eddie's not coming. He's too busy with his garage. Tara's mother had never liked me. Dorothy Grant, no relation to Lila, just another unfortunate coincidence of surnames, came from old Riverside money. She'd made it clear from day one that her daughter was marrying beneath her station. After Tara went to bed, I sat in my garage and made a list. Not a revenge list, nothing dramatic or stupid, just a practical inventory of our shared assets and obligations. Joint checking account, $3,200 joint savings account, 1,847 Tara's credit cards, $23,000 in debt. My credit cards, $8,000 in debt house, $180,000 mortgage balance Tara's car, $340 monthly payment, my truck, paid off. The numbers told a story I'd been ignoring for months. We were drowning in debt, most of it from Tara's spending, while I worked myself into the ground trying to stay afloat. I called Penny. She's leaving tomorrow morning, I said. The fake conference. I know. She asked me to handle her appointments on Monday, said she might be delayed getting back. Penny, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. How bad is it at work? How much does everyone know? Long pause. It's bad, Eddie. Lila's been running a whisper campaign for weeks. She's got people convinced that you're unstable, that Tara's afraid of you. Some of the women are talking about staging an intervention. An intervention for what? To convince Tara to leave you. They think she's in an abusive relationship. I laughed, but it came out bitter and hollow. Abusive? I've never raised my voice to her until this week. I know that. You know that. But Lila's very persuasive, and people love drama. They want to believe they're saving the poor marketing executive from her brutish husband. What aren't you telling me? Another pause. There's talk about you losing customers. Lila's been making calls, suggesting that people might not want to do business with someone who stalks and threatens innocent people. My hands tightened on the phone. She's trying to destroy my business. I think so. And Eddie? There's something else. I overheard Lila talking to someone about getting you out of the picture permanently. She mentioned lawyers and restraining orders and other things. What other things? I don't know, but she sounded excited about it, like she was planning something big. After I hung up, I sat in the dark garage for a long time. The tools around me represented 30 years of learning, building, fixing things that were broken. But some things couldn't be repaired with wrenches and determination. Saturday morning, Tara left at 7 a.m. with 2 suitcases and a smile that could have powered the city. She kissed my cheek, the first physical contact we'd had in weeks, and promised to call when she arrived. Have fun at your conference, I said. Oh, I will. This is exactly the kind of fun I need. I watched her drive away, then called Jerry. You ready to start fighting back? He asked. Yeah, but I need to be smart about it. Come to the gym. We'll figure out a plan. Jerry's gym occupied the ground floor of an old brick building downtown. The equipment was ancient but functional, and the walls were covered with photos of local boxers who'd made it to regional competitions. It smelled like honest sweat and determination. First rule, Jerry said, wrapping my hands for the heavy bag, don't let anger make your decisions. Anger makes you stupid, and stupid gets you caught. I threw a combination at the bag, feeling the satisfying thud of leather against my knuckles. Second rule, know your enemy. Your wife, her boyfriend, this Lila woman, they think you're weak, they think you'll roll over and take whatever they dish out. Use that. Another combination, harder this time. Third rule, hit them where it hurts most. For your wife, that's her reputation and her comfort. For the boyfriend, that's his ego and his business. For the friend, that's her control over the situation. I worked the bag for an hour while Jerry coached me through the plan. Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just strategic pressure applied at exactly the right points. You sure about this? He asked as I unwrapped my hands. They want to play games? Let's play games. That afternoon, I made my first move. I went to the bank and withdrew half of our joint savings, $923.50, exactly my legal share. Then I called the credit card companies and reported Tara's cards as potentially compromised, requesting temporary holds on all accounts. By evening, my phone was ringing. Eddie, it's me. Tara's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. What did you do to my credit cards? I reported them as potentially stolen. You know, since you've been acting so strangely lately, I was worried someone might have gotten hold of your information. Unlock them, now. I can't. The security holds are automatic. You'll have to call the companies yourself on Monday. This is ridiculous. How am I supposed to pay for anything? I thought your company was covering conference expenses. Silence. Then, fix this, Eddie. I mean it. Have fun at your conference, honey. Give my regards to Chicago. I hung up and smiled for the first time in weeks. The real fun was just getting started. Sunday morning, I attended church for the first time in months. Not out of religious conviction, but because St. Mary's was where Riverside's social elite gathered to see and be seen. If I was going to rehabilitate my reputation, I needed to start with the people who mattered. Dorothy Grant sat in her usual pew, third row from the front, wearing a hat that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. After the service, I approached her with my most respectful demeanor. "Mrs. Grant, good morning. Beautiful service today." She looked surprised to see me. "Edward, I didn't expect to see you here. Isn't Tara at her conference?" "Yes, ma'am. Chicago. Big marketing presentation. She's been working so hard lately, she deserves the break." Dorothy's expression softened slightly. Despite her disapproval of me, she appreciated a husband who supported his wife's career. "She mentioned you've been having some difficulties lately." "Just the usual stress of running a small business. You know how it is. People love to gossip when they don't have all the facts." "What do you mean?" I sighed, playing the part of the long-suffering husband. "There's been some talk around town, silly rumors about Tara and some trainer at the gym. Pure nonsense, of course, but you know how people can be." Dorothy's face hardened. The Grant family reputation meant everything to her, and the suggestion that her daughter might be the subject of scandalous gossip hit exactly where I'd intended. "What kind of rumors?" "Nothing worth repeating, Mrs. Grant. I'm sure it will all blow over once people find something else to talk about." I excused myself and left her standing in the church parking lot, her mind clearly racing. By Monday morning, she'd have called half her social circle to discuss the malicious gossip about her daughter. That afternoon, I drove to Elite Fitness. The gym was busy with weekend warriors and dedicated athletes, all trying to work off their indulgences or prepare for the week ahead. I found Nick at the front desk, flexing for a group of admiring college girls. "Eddie Ford," I said, extending my hand. "We haven't been properly introduced." Nick looked confused but shook my hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. He was trying to be professional. "Nick Bannon. Good to meet you, man. I wanted to thank you for helping my wife with her fitness goals. Tara speaks very highly of your training methods." The college girls exchanged glances and drifted away. Nick's confident smile faltered slightly. "Yeah, well, Tara's a dedicated client, really committed to her workout routine." "I'm sure she is. In fact, she's so committed that she's attending a fitness conference in Chicago this weekend, learning new techniques, I imagine." Nick's face went pale. He clearly hadn't expected me to know about the trip, and my casual mention of it threw him completely off balance. That's great. Professional development is important." "Absolutely. I run a small business myself, so I understand the value of networking. Speaking of which, how's your client retention? I imagine the fitness industry can be pretty competitive." "It's fine. Why?" I smiled and handed him my business card. "Just curious. If you ever need automotive work, give me a call. I offer very competitive rates for Tara's friends." I left him standing at the front desk, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Monday morning brought the next phase of my plan. Penny called at 8 a.m. "Eddie, you need to know. Lila's been asking questions about you. She wanted to know if I'd ever seen you act violently or threateningly." "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that you're the gentlest person I know." But she didn't seem happy with that answer. "What else?" "She's been making calls to your customers. I overheard her talking to Jim Peterson about safety concerns regarding your garage." Jim Peterson was one of my oldest customers, a retired factory worker who brought his wife's Buick to me for everything from oil changes to major repairs. If Lila was targeting him, she was going after the foundation of my business. "Penny, I need you to do something for me, but it has to stay between us." "What?" "I need you to keep track of Tara's appointments this week, especially any meetings with lawyers or anyone who might be helping her plan changes to our situation." "You think she's filing for divorce?" "I think she's planning something, and I need to be ready." That afternoon, I called Jim Peterson. "Jim, it's Eddie Ford. I heard you might have some concerns about bringing your car to my shop." "Well, Eddie, I got a call from some woman at Tara's office. She suggested that you might be going through some personal problems that could affect your work." "Jim, you've been bringing your cars to me for 8 years. Have I ever given you reason to doubt my professionalism?" "No, you haven't. That's why I'm calling you directly instead of just taking my business elsewhere." "I appreciate that. The truth is, Tara and I are having some marital difficulties. But I've never let personal problems affect my work, and I never will." "That's what I figured. That woman, Lila something, she seemed awfully interested in your personal life for someone who supposedly just cared about automotive safety." "What exactly did she say?" She hinted that you might be unstable, said there had been incidents involving threatening behavior. But Eddie, I've known you since you opened that garage. You're about as threatening as a golden retriever. After I hung up, I realized that Lila's campaign was more extensive than I'd thought. She wasn't just spreading gossip. She was systematically trying to destroy my livelihood. Tuesday evening, Tara returned from her conference with a glow that had nothing to do with professional development. She was relaxed, confident, and completely unapologetic about the credit card situation. I had to pay for everything in cash, she said, unpacking expensive clothes I'd never seen before. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? I'm sure the bank will sort it out soon. They better. And Eddie, we need to discuss some changes around here. What kind of changes? She sat on the edge of our bed and looked at me with the kind of expression a teacher might use with a particularly slow student. I've been doing some thinking. About us, about our future, about what I want from life. This weekend helped me realize that I deserve better than what we have here. Better how? I deserve to be with someone who appreciates me, someone who makes me feel alive and excited about the future, someone who doesn't smell like motor oil and complain about money all the time. Someone like Nick? She didn't even have the grace to look embarrassed. Yes, someone like Nick. So what are you saying? I'm saying that I want a divorce. I want you to move out of this house, and I want to start fresh with someone who actually wants to make me happy. I stared at her for a long moment. After 18 years of marriage, this was how it ended. Not with tears or regret, but with cold calculation and selfish demands. What about Olivia? She's 16. She can decide for herself where she wants to live. But honestly, Eddie, what kind of future can you offer her? A garage that's barely breaking even, and a father who can't even keep his own wife interested. That night, I called Jerry. She wants a divorce, I said. You sound surprisingly calm about it. I'm past being upset. Now I'm just focused on making sure she doesn't destroy me in the process. What's your next move? I'm going to give her exactly what she asked for. Fun, excitement, and a future with her personal trainer boyfriend. That doesn't sound like revenge. Trust me, by the time I'm done, she'll understand that some kinds of fun come with a very high price. Wednesday morning, I made a call that would change everything. Penny had given me the number for Lux Travel, the agency Tara used for her business trips. I identified myself as Edward Ford, Tara's husband, and explained that I wanted to surprise her with an upgraded vacation package. She's been working so hard lately, I told the agent, a cheerful woman named Susan. I thought she and her friends deserved something really special. That's so thoughtful. What did you have in mind? She mentioned wanting to visit the Caribbean, maybe somewhere with white sand beaches and crystal clear water. Money's no object. I want this to be perfect. Susan was delighted to help. Within an hour, she'd arranged a week-long package to the Bahamas. Luxury suite at the Ocean Club Resort, first-class flights, spa treatments, and gourmet dining. The total cost was $8,000, charged to Tara's newly reactivated credit card. She's going to be so surprised, Susan gushed. Oh, she will be. Trust me on that. The next step required more delicate timing. I called Tara at work and asked if she wanted to have dinner, our first attempt at civilized conversation since her return from Chicago. I suppose we should discuss the practical details, she said, divorce arrangements and such. We met at Romano's, an upscale Italian restaurant where Tara liked to be seen. She wore a new dress and had clearly spent extra time on her hair and makeup, playing the role of the successful woman moving on to bigger and better things. I've been thinking about what you said, I began once we'd ordered, about deserving better, about being with someone who makes you happy. She looked surprised, but pleased. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. I want you to be happy, Tara. I always have. Maybe I haven't been the husband you needed, but that doesn't mean I want to see you suffer. That's actually very mature of you. I've also been thinking about finances. The divorce is going to be expensive, and we both need lawyers. Maybe we should each have one last hurrah before we start dividing assets and arguing over custody. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you should take that vacation you've been wanting, somewhere tropical and relaxing where you can think clearly about your future. Her eyes lit up. I have been feeling stressed lately. You should invite your friends, make it a girls' trip. Lila, maybe some of the other women from your office. A celebration of your new independence? That's not a terrible idea. But Eddie, we can't afford... Let me worry about the money. Consider it my divorce gift to you. A chance to start fresh without any guilt or regret. She reached across the table and touched my hand, the first affectionate gesture she'd made in months. Thank you. I know this hasn't been easy for either of us. Just promise me you'll have fun. Real fun. The kind you've been missing. Friday afternoon, Tara burst through the front door with more energy than I'd seen from her in years. "Eddie, the most amazing thing happened. Susan from Lux Travel called. Apparently there was some kind of mix-up with a celebrity booking, and they have a luxury suite available in the Bahamas at a fraction of the normal cost." "That's incredible. What a lucky coincidence." "I called Lila and 2 other friends from work. We're leaving Sunday morning." "What about Nick?" She had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I thought maybe he could join us for part of the week. You know, as a fitness consultant, the resort has an amazing gym." "Of course. Whatever makes you happy." That evening, I made a series of phone calls that would ensure Tara's vacation was everything she'd asked for, and more. First, I called the Ocean Club Resort and upgraded their package even further. Premium everything: champagne service, private beach cabana, helicopter tours, deep-sea fishing excursions. Another $4,000 on Tara's credit card. Second, I called Nick's gym and spoke to the owner, a no-nonsense former Marine named Dave Martinez. "Dave, this is Eddie Ford. My wife Tara has been training with one of your employees, Nick Bannon." "Yeah, I know Nick. Is there a problem?" "Not exactly a problem, but I thought you should know that he's been having an affair with my wife. They're actually going on vacation together this weekend." Long pause. "Are you sure about this?" "Completely sure. I'm not calling to cause trouble for Nick, but I thought you might want to know that he's been using your facility to conduct personal relationships with married clients." "I appreciate you letting me know. That kind of behavior reflects poorly on the entire gym." Third, I called Tara's credit card companies and requested that they lift the security holds but implement fraud monitoring. Any unusual spending patterns would trigger automatic reviews and potential account freezes. Finally, I called Penny. "They're leaving Sunday morning. Tara, Lila, 2 other women from your office, and Nick." "Eddie, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to give them exactly what they want. A vacation they'll never forget." Sunday morning, Tara kissed me goodbye with genuine warmth. "Thank you for being so understanding about everything. This trip is exactly what I need to clear my head and figure out my future. Just remember what you said about deserving better. Make sure you get everything you're paying for." I watched her taxi disappear down the street, then went into my garage and waited for the show to begin. The first call came at 2 p.m. "Eddie, it's me." Tara's voice was tight with stress. "There's been some kind of mistake with our hotel booking. They're saying our suite costs 3 times what Susan quoted." "That's strange. Maybe it's a miscommunication." "The desk clerk says we've been upgraded to the presidential suite, the one that costs $2,000 a night." "Wow. Well, you did say you wanted something special." "Eddie, we can't afford this." "Didn't Susan say it was already paid for?" Pause. "She said it was charged to my credit card. But that's impossible. I don't have a $14,000 credit limit." Maybe you should call the credit card company." I tried. They said the charges are legitimate and the account is current. "Eddie, what's going on?" "I have no idea. But hey, you're already there. Might as well enjoy it." The second call came at 6 p.m. "The resort is demanding payment for all these extra services I never ordered. Spa treatments, helicopter tours, private dining. It's another $8,000. "That does seem excessive." "Eddie, I know you did this somehow. Cancel these charges right now." "Tara, I'm sitting in my garage in Riverside. How could I possibly be controlling what happens at a resort in the Bahamas?" "I don't know, but look, you wanted fun and excitement. You wanted to feel alive and appreciated. Isn't that what you're getting?" Silence. Then, "This isn't funny, Eddie." "No, it's not. It's expensive. But wasn't that always the point? That I was too cheap, too boring, too focused on practical things like budgets and bills? Fix this. Now." "I can't fix anything from here. But I'm sure Nick will figure something out. He seems like a resourceful guy." The third call came at 10 p.m. "Eddie, please, I'm begging you. They're threatening to call the police if we can't pay the bill. My credit cards are maxed out and the bank won't approve any more charges." "What does Nick suggest?" "Nick left. He said this was too much drama and caught a flight back to Miami. He stuck us with his share of the expenses." "That doesn't sound very gentlemanly." "Eddie, I'm stranded here with 3 other women, a $22,000 hotel bill, and no way to pay for it. Please help me." "Tara, you told me you wanted a divorce. You told me I was boring and cheap and that you deserved better. Why would you call me for help?" Because you're my husband." "Not for much longer, according to you." "Eddie, please, I'll do anything." "Anything?" "Yes, anything." I let the silence stretch for a long moment, listening to her breathe on the other end of the line. "Call your mother," I said finally. Ask her to wire you the money. I can't ask my mother for $22,000. Then I guess you'll have to figure out another solution. Maybe the resort will let you work off the debt. I hear they're always looking for housekeeping staff. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, Riverside slept peacefully under a canopy of stars. Somewhere in the Bahamas, my wife was learning the true cost of the fun she'd demanded, and I was just getting started. Monday morning brought a call from Dorothy Grant that I'd been expecting. Edward, I need to speak with you immediately. Tara called me last night in hysterics, babbling about hotel bills and credit cards. What exactly is going on? I'm not entirely sure, Mrs. Grant. Tara went on vacation with some friends from work. Apparently there were some misunderstandings about the costs. Misunderstandings. She's asking me to wire $22,000 to a resort in the Bahamas. That does seem like a lot of money for a vacation. Edward, don't play games with me. Did you arrange this somehow? I paused, choosing my words carefully. Mrs. Grant, I encouraged Tara to take a vacation. I thought it would be good for her to spend time with her friends and think about what she really wants from life. What she wants is to come home without being arrested for unpaid bills. Then perhaps you should help her. I'm not paying $22,000 for my daughter's foolishness. You're her husband. You fix this. Actually, Mrs. Grant, Tara made it very clear that she wants a divorce. She told me I'm boring, cheap, and beneath her standards. She said she deserves better than what I can provide. So I'm giving her exactly what she asked for, a chance to see what better actually costs. Long silence. When Dorothy spoke again, her voice was ice cold. You orchestrated this entire situation. I encouraged my wife to pursue her dreams of excitement and luxury. If that's orchestration, then yes, I'm guilty. This is petty and vindictive. This is expensive and educational. There's a difference. I hung up and called Penny. How's the office gossip mill this morning? Brutal. Lila called in sick, but everyone knows she's stuck in the Bahamas. The other two women who went with Tara are junior executives. They can't afford to miss work, but they also can't afford to pay their share of the hotel bill. What's the official story? Tara's assistant told everyone there was a travel emergency, and that Tara would be delayed returning from her business conference. But people are starting to ask questions. What kind of questions? The kind that start with, why was Lila at Tara's business conference? And end with, wasn't that personal trainer guy posting photos from Miami yesterday? Tuesday afternoon, I received a visit I hadn't expected. Dave Martinez from Elite Fitness knocked on my garage door, looking like a man with something unpleasant to discuss. Eddie Ford? We spoke on the phone about Nick Bannon. Right. How can I help you? I wanted to thank you for the heads up about Nick's behavior. After you called, I did some checking. Turns out he's been having inappropriate relationships with several married clients. That's unfortunate. It's also grounds for termination. I fired him yesterday when he got back from his little vacation. But here's the interesting part. He tried to claim that you had threatened him physically. I set down my wrench and gave Dave my full attention. That's not true. I didn't think it was. Nick's the type to exaggerate when he's in trouble, but I wanted to hear your side of the story. I told him about my visit to the gym, emphasizing that I'd been polite and professional throughout our conversation. That matches what my front desk staff remembered. You shook his hand, made small talk, and left your business card. Hardly threatening behavior. I appreciate you checking. There's something else. Nick mentioned that your wife and her friends got stuck with a huge hotel bill in the Bahamas. He seemed to think you were responsible somehow. My wife chose to take an expensive vacation. I'm not responsible for her financial decisions. Dave studied my face for a moment, then smiled. You know what? Good for you. Nick's been bragging for months about his rich married girlfriend who paid for everything. Guy needed a reality check. Wednesday evening, Tara finally called from the airport in Nassau. We're coming home, she said, her voice flat with exhaustion. How did you resolve the hotel situation? My mother wired the money, but Eddie, we need to talk. This isn't over. I'm sure it's not. You humiliated me. You humiliated my friends. You destroyed my relationship with Nick. I encouraged you to pursue your dreams of luxury and excitement. If that destroyed your relationship with Nick, maybe it wasn't as strong as you thought. You're going to pay for this. Tara, I've been paying for 18 years. It's your turn now. Thursday afternoon, Lila Grant made her first appearance at the office since the vacation disaster. According to Penny, she looked like she'd aged 5 years in 1 week. She's telling everyone that you're a master manipulator who orchestrated the entire situation, Penny reported, but people are starting to ask uncomfortable questions about why she was on Tara's business trip in the first place. What's Tara's strategy? She's claiming that you deliberately sabotaged her vacation out of spite. But the problem is, she can't explain how you did it without admitting that she lied about the business conference. And the other women who went along? They're furious. One of them had to borrow money from her parents to cover her share of the expenses. The other one is facing a disciplinary review for taking unauthorized time off. What about Nick? Word got around that he abandoned them when the bills came due. His reputation in town is finished. Turns out a lot of people had suspected he was trouble, but nobody wanted to be the first to say anything. Friday morning, I opened my garage to find Jim Peterson waiting with his wife's Buick. "Morning, Eddie. Need an oil change and a tire rotation." "Coming right up, Jim." As I worked on the car, Jim leaned against the workbench and studied me with curious eyes. "You know, I got another call from that Lila woman yesterday. She was even more insistent that you were dangerous and unstable." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that anyone who could plan and execute what you pulled off in the Bahamas was definitely not unstable. Calculating, maybe. Vengeful, certainly. But not unstable." I looked up from the oil pan. "You figured it out?" "Eddie, I've been married for 43 years. I know what a man looks like when he's been pushed too far. The question is, what happens now? Now Tara gets to decide whether she still wants that divorce. And if she does, then she gets to explain to a judge why she racked up $22,000 in vacation expenses while claiming our marriage was financially unsustainable." Jim laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. "Son, you've got more spine than people give you credit for." That evening, Tara came home and sat at our kitchen table with a stack of papers, legal documents, bank statements, and what looked like a carefully prepared speech. "We need to discuss our situation rationally," she began. "I'm listening. What you did in the Bahamas was cruel and vindictive, but I understand that you were hurt and angry about my relationship with Nick." "Your affair, you mean?" She flinched but continued. "I'm willing to forgive your behavior if you're willing to forgive mine. We can go to counseling, work on our marriage, try to rebuild what we had." "What about Nick?" "Nick is out of the picture, permanently." "What about the divorce you wanted?" "I think we both said things we didn't mean. Maybe we can start over." I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse or affection. What I saw instead was calculation, a woman who'd been backed into a corner and was looking for the least damaging way out. "Tara, do you love me?" The question seemed to surprise her. "Of course I do." "Do you respect me?" Longer pause. "I'm learning to." "Do you want to be married to me, or do you just want to avoid the consequences of not being married to me?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "Eddie, I need an answer. The credit card companies are demanding payment, and my mother is threatening to cut me off financially if this situation isn't resolved soon." "Then I guess you'd better hope I decide to be forgiving." I left her sitting at the kitchen table and walked out to my garage. Through the window, I could see her hunched over the legal documents, probably calculating the cost of her mistakes. For the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. Not happiness, that would take time to rebuild, but the satisfaction of a job well done, a problem solved through intelligence rather than violence. Tara had wanted fun and excitement. She'd gotten both, along with a $22,000 education in the difference between what you want and what you can afford. The question now was whether she'd learned anything from the experience or whether she'd just gotten better at hiding her true nature. Either way, I was ready for whatever came next. Saturday morning brought the kind of crisp October weather that made Riverside look almost beautiful. The leaves were turning gold and crimson, and the morning light made even our struggling downtown look picturesque. It was the perfect day for the annual Founders' Day Festival, the biggest social event of the year I hadn't planned to attend. Public gatherings felt dangerous when half the town was whispering about my marriage, and the other half was taking sides in a drama they only partially understood. But Jerry convinced me otherwise. "You can't hide forever," he said over coffee at Murphy's Diner. "People are starting to respect what you did. Not everyone, but enough to matter." "What do you mean?" "I mean, word's gotten around about how Nick abandoned those women when the bills came due. I mean, people are asking why Lila was so interested in destroying your business. I mean, your wife's story doesn't add up, and folks are starting to notice." He was right. The whispered conversations I'd been overhearing had shifted in tone over the past few days. Less sympathy for poor Tara, and more questions about the circumstances that led to her expensive vacation. "Besides," Jerry added, "Founders' Day is when this town settles its scores. If you don't show up, people will assume you're ashamed of what you did." "Aren't I? Are you?" I thought about that question while I walked home. Was I ashamed of orchestrating Tara's humiliation? Of manipulating her into a situation where her lies and selfishness were exposed? Of using her own greed and entitlement against her? The answer was complicated. I wasn't proud of the deception, but I wasn't sorry about the results. Tara had spent months planning to destroy my reputation and my business while conducting an affair that made me a laughingstock. She'd gotten exactly what she'd asked for: excitement, luxury, and consequences. That afternoon, I put on my best shirt and walked downtown to the festival. Main Street was blocked off for the event, with vendor booths lining both sides of the road and a small stage set up in front of the old courthouse. The smell of funnel cakes and barbecue filled the air, and children ran between the booths with sticky fingers and wide smiles. I was surprised by the number of people who approached me with friendly greetings. Jim Peterson introduced me to his brother-in-law as the smartest mechanic in 3 counties. Margaret Murphy pressed a free slice of apple pie into my hands and told me I looked like I needed feeding. Even Dave Martinez from Elite Fitness made a point of shaking my hand in front of several potential customers. "Eddie Ford," he announced loudly, "the man who taught my former employee about professional boundaries." But the real surprise came when Mayor Patricia Hendricks approached the microphone on the main stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, every year at Founders Day, we like to recognize members of our community who embody the values that built this town: hard work, integrity, and the courage to stand up for what's right." I was only half listening, focused on scanning the crowd for Tara. She'd left the house that morning without telling me where she was going, but I assumed she'd avoid the festival rather than face the public scrutiny. "This year," Mayor Hendricks continued, "I'd like to recognize a local business owner who's shown us all what it means to handle adversity with dignity and intelligence." That got my attention. She was looking directly at me. "Eddie Ford has run Ford's Auto Repair for 8 years, providing honest service and fair prices to anyone who needed help. Recently, he faced some personal challenges that could have made him bitter or vindictive. Instead, he chose to respond with creativity and class." The crowd was murmuring now, people turning to look at me with expressions ranging from curiosity to admiration. I felt my face burning with embarrassment. "Eddie, would you come up here for a moment?" I shook my head, but Jerry appeared at my elbow and pushed me toward the stage. "Go," he whispered. "This is your moment." Reluctantly, I climbed the steps and stood next to Mayor Hendricks. The crowd looked different from up there, larger, more diverse, more interested than I'd expected. "Eddie, I understand you've been dealing with some difficult circumstances lately." "Yes, ma'am. Marriage troubles. And I understand that instead of responding with anger or violence, you chose a more creative approach." Nervous laughter from the crowd. Word had definitely gotten around about the Bahamas situation. "I just tried to give my wife what she said she wanted." "Which was?" "Fun and excitement. A chance to see what life could be like with unlimited resources and no consequences." More laughter, less nervous this time. "And what did she learn from that experience?" I looked out at the crowd and saw faces I'd known for years. Customers, neighbors, people who'd watched my marriage crumble and wondered how I'd handle the humiliation. They deserved honesty. She learned that fun is expensive, excitement is temporary, and consequences are unavoidable. The crowd erupted in applause. Not polite festival applause, but genuine appreciation for a lesson they'd all learned at some point in their lives. "Eddie Ford, everyone," Mayor Hendricks announced. "A man who proves that intelligence beats anger every time." As I stepped down from the stage, I saw her. Tara stood at the back of the crowd, partially hidden behind a vendor booth selling handmade jewelry. She was wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, but I'd recognize her posture anywhere, shoulders back, chin up, projecting confidence even when she felt cornered. Our eyes met across the festival crowd, and for a moment neither of us moved. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing between the booths like a ghost from my past. I followed her, weaving through families and couples enjoying the perfect October afternoon. I found her sitting on a bench in Riverside Park, staring at the bronze statue of our town's founder, a stern-faced man who'd built a lumber mill on the river and attracted enough workers to create a community. "Quite a speech," she said without looking at me. "I didn't plan it." "No, you never were much of a public speaker, but you've gotten better at planning other things." I sat down next to her, maintaining careful distance. "How much did you hear?" "Enough. The whole town thinks you're some kind of hero for humiliating me." "I didn't humiliate you, Tara. I just gave you enough rope." She turned to face me, pulling off her sunglasses to reveal eyes that were red-rimmed but dry. "Do you have any idea what this has cost me? My job, my reputation, my relationship with my mother? Do you have any idea what your affair cost me? My self-respect, my standing in the community, nearly my business? That's different." "How?" "Because what I did was personal. What you did was public." I stared at her, amazed by her ability to rationalize. "Tara, You conducted your affair in public. You met your boyfriend in parking garages where people could see you. You brought him to family gatherings. You made me a laughingstock in my own town. I never meant for it to go that far. But it did go that far. And when I found out, instead of apologizing or trying to fix things, you told me I was boring and demanded a divorce. She was quiet for a long moment, watching children play on the swings while their parents chatted nearby. Normal families doing normal things, the kind of life we'd once had before ambition and resentment poisoned everything. What happens now? She asked finally. That's up to you. I can't afford a divorce. The legal fees alone would bankrupt me, and after the Bahamas disaster, then maybe you shouldn't have demanded one. Eddie, I'm trying to apologize. No, you're trying to negotiate. There's a difference. She stood up abruptly, her composure cracking. Fine. You want me to grovel? You want me to beg for forgiveness? Will that satisfy your need for revenge? I don't want you to grovel. I want you to mean it. Mean what? The apology. The remorse. The acknowledgement that you made choices that hurt people and that those choices have consequences. I hurt you. I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? Only if it's true. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. The calculation faded, replaced by something that might have been genuine emotion. I am sorry, she said quietly. Not just because I got caught, not just because it's expensive. I'm sorry because I forgot who you were, who we were. Who were we? We were partners. We were friends. We were people who took care of each other instead of keeping score. What changed? I did. I started wanting things we couldn't afford and blaming you for not being able to provide them. I started thinking I deserved better instead of being grateful for what we had. It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in years. What about Nick? Nick was never about love or even attraction. He was about feeling young and desirable and free from responsibility. He was about pretending I was someone I'm not. And now? Now I know exactly who I am. A middle-aged woman who destroyed her marriage for a fantasy and learned that fantasies are expensive. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun sink lower in the October sky. The festival sounds drifted across the park. Laughter, music, the normal rhythms of a community celebrating itself. Can we fix this? She asked eventually. I don't know. Do you want to? I want to try. It won't be the same. I can't forget what happened, and I won't pretend to. I know. And it won't be easy. We have a lot of damage to repair, and not just between us. Your mother, Olivia, the whole town, everyone has opinions about our marriage now. I know. And I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. I won't be taken for granted again. She looked at me with something that might have been respect. I know that too. I stood up and extended my hand. Come on, let's go home. She took my hand and let me pull her to her feet. Just like that? Not just like that, but it's a start. We walked home through the gathering dusk, past the festival crowds and the decorated storefronts, past the garage where I'd spent so many nights working while my marriage fell apart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, counseling sessions, difficult conversations, the slow work of rebuilding trust. But tonight, for the first time in months, I wasn't walking alone. The fun Tara had asked for was over. The real work was just beginning.